Now I'm going to talk really briefly about response to intervention, or RTI. Most of you probably are familiar with RTI at this point, but I'm going to give you just a brief overview of the tiers of RTI, and then you're going to take a deeper dive into some of the research around RTI. So to start, RTI stands for Response to Intervention, which is a school-wide program that aims to identify any students with needs for support before they fall far behind their peers. This is a preventative approach, which is different from what we used to use, a reactive approach. So the idea with RTI is that we catch them before they're too far behind rather than waiting for them to fail to show that they need services. Which is great, and it consists of multiple levels of assessment and instruction designed to provide early intervention to those who need it and to increase data-driven instructional decisions. What I love about RTI is that preventing failure is the goal. Instead of waiting for them to fail, we catch them at their point of need before that. So this is coming from NICEAD's Guide to RTI, which you can find up here at this link, but this is the typical pyramid model that you'll find for most people talking about RTI. We look at it from typically 3 different tiers of support. Some RTI systems have 4 tiers, but most of them you're going to find have these 3 tiers. And I'm going to walk through what each of these tiers are. But what I like about this model is that it shows 2 sides to the RTI pyramid. Academic systems, so the supports that are going to help students academically, including small group interventions, rapid response, high intensity assessment based academic systems, and then behavioral as well. So RTI, one of the big shifts in special ed is that RTI now is a system for academic and behavioral support for students. So let's take a close look at Tier 1 of RTI. Tier 1 is effective instruction in literacy. 90 minutes in grade 6 and 120 minutes in grades K through 5 of a core reading program is mandated for all children. This is high quality instruction with small group differentiation, with intervention at times. This is all happening within the Gen Ed classroom. It is mandated that every child in the state get this amount of time of instruction. It also includes progress monitoring, which is frequently checking in on students' reading to determine who needs further evaluation. This is either for all Tier 1 or those identified as struggling after what's called universal screening. Universal screening is that initial check-in, that initial casting of the net very wide to see where everybody is at the start of the year. And then benchmark assessing happens usually mid-year and end of year at the very least, and those are all meant to monitor the progress of your students and figure out who may need Tier 2 placements or who may be out of Tier 2 and can drop back down to Tier 1. It also includes informal assessments, which are observations, assignments, homework, all of the data that teachers are constantly collecting. That all goes into and is part of Tier 1. So a sample 90-minute block for first grade. So this would not include an additional 30 minutes of time outside of this block where maybe they would focus on writing or something else. But a typical 90-minute block is going to look something like this, where you're starting with whole group instruction with that core comprehensive reading program, CCRP. And usually you're going to do 25 to 45 minutes of that. You're doing things like phonemic awareness in first grade, vocabulary and comprehension strategies, all of the good pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading strategies. Then you're going to break up into some cycle of small group instruction. This is typically like your guided reading time, where you've got different groups doing different kinds of work. And you're meeting roughly 15 to 20 minutes with those small groups of students based on the need. and you've got sort of a rotating schedule. This is where you're running your centers in the background as well. And then you've got later 20 minutes of immediate intensive intervention, which is for your students who have those extreme needs and need extra support outside of what you're teaching in that whole class and small group time. Some really popular core comprehensive reading programs include the Engage New York modules, Daily 5, the Fountas and Pinnell Leveled Literacy Intervention, Lucy Calkins Reading and Writing Workshops, Literature Circles, Read 180, Success for All, Reading Mastery. These are all curricular programs that satisfy this core comprehensive reading program. Here is an example of a core comprehensive program. This is the Journeys program from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and this is what a weekly planner looks like. So it's very similar to that 90-minute block I showed on the last slide. And you can see there would be 30 minutes later of Tier 2 intervention after this, but it's going to have some daily language practice, some word work, some skills and strategies, all happening whole group. And then each day looks like they're reading a different text, sometimes repeating readings of texts, and keeping consistent routines. In this case, it's including phonological awareness, high frequency word and vocabulary work, and then some more phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, or oral vocabulary work. And lots of read alouds. You can see read alouds are happening in this block down here. Lots of time with strategies that are focused on for the whole week. Then there's a writing block and some grammar work. There's that small group instruction for Tier 2, and then the state standards that are being met. So this is a sample of the Journeys program and what would satisfy Tier 1. For Tier 2, we're talking about effective instruction, proven effective instruction for your students who have more needs. So students who are in Tier 2 continue with Tier 1. They stay in the core comprehensive reading program. They're in your whole class instruction still, but they're also getting 10 to 12 weeks of small group instruction with 3 to 5 students for 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week at a time outside of that whole class ELA block. So going back to this model, this is the Tier 2 block where those small groups would get pulled out. Sometimes sometimes the gen ed teacher is doing that, but often that's going to be with the specialist. The reading specialist will take those kiddos. Occasionally you might have a special ed teacher doing that, but generally that Tier 2 instruction is happening with a reading specialist. The instruction needs to be from a research-based program. That's the proven effective program that's administered to all of the students in all 5 areas of reading, the big 5. Progress is monitored at least every 1 to 2 weeks with literacy assessments. Sometimes that's a running record, sometimes that's a phonemic awareness test, however you need to monitor. And then more intense support that includes more modeling of strategies, adjusted pace, and more opportunities to practice Tier 1. So essentially Tier 2 is going to look very similar to Tier 1. It's just going to be deeper, more reinforced, sometimes slower rollout of the strategies and skills from Tier 1. You are staying on grade level in your Tier 2 instruction. You will also pre-teach and review skills that are coming for Tier 1 lessons to get your kiddos ready for what's coming. You might reteach, you might review with more examples. These are all things that can happen in Tier 2. After 10 to 12 weeks, the students get progress monitored again, and then a decision is made. If they have improved, if they have responded to that intervention, they might go back down, or they might continue in Tier 2, or they might be recommended for Tier 3 if they have not responded to that intervention. So this all connects back to that idea of kind of action research. So thinking about the strategies, the effective instruction that you can provide a student that may or may not be effective to them, checking in with your assessing to see if they have responded, and then making a plan from there. So going back to that core comprehensive program, most of them, going back to journeys, most of them include the tiered instruction right in their package programs now. So you can see this has a separate tier 2 program that follows the journeys curriculum, but lays it out in a somewhat slower and more detailed manner. So this is what you would teach at the same time that they're getting the whole class instruction in this. So you can see the objectives, the terms about reading or characters and settings, that would be the same in the classroom. The objectives are read and use high frequency words, discriminate words in oral sentences, identify story structure, answer questions about a story. That would echo what's happening with the ugly duckling in the whole class. So it's the same story, but they're getting retaught these things. They're getting a review of this, and then they're going to reread that ugly duckling story. So the kiddos in your tier 2 in this program are getting the same content multiple times, and they're getting the same kind of practice reinforced with the reading specialist. The next level up is tier 3, and this is also research-based effective instruction. This is much more focused, individualized instruction that's based on the student's needs, not on the grade level. The goals are designed based on assessment data and need. This is really that intervention, one-on-one, more intense, more frequent, longer instruction with a specialist. Sometimes this is happening during tier 2, for a longer duration, weeks, months, years. Typically, tier 3 is still going to be part of your gen ed curriculum. It is supplemental to your tier 1 instruction. So those kiddos are still taking your tier 1 block. They're still in your whole class, and then they get pulled out for this intervention later. But sometimes these students are in your school's special education program, and they're getting this supplemental instruction instead of tier 1. They're getting focused, individualized instruction every single day. Progress monitoring is happening on a weekly, sometimes even daily basis for these students. They might have IEPs or be in the process of getting an IEP, which needs to be taken into consideration. Another reason that this is needs-based or goals-based, not grade level standards-based instruction. And students who don't respond to intervention level support might be considered for special education services if they don't already have them. We're talking about only 1 to 5% of your students in your class. So you may have a couple of kiddos in your class who would qualify for tier 3 instruction. So once again, here's another look at this tiered system. At tier 1, they're getting that grade level instruction. At tier 2, they're getting that small group instruction a couple or a few times a week. At tier 3, they're getting that individualized one-on-one intervention. In this class, I asked you to kind of target kids who are sort of average, might be in that tier 2, but a lot of you ended up working with students who were much higher and maybe approaching tier 3. So I put the arrow there. For some of you, it might be lower. For some of you, you might actually have students who are already receiving tier 3 supports. So that is RtI in a nutshell. And what you're going to do next in this module is check out some resources. And the first one is this PDF that the Rochester City School District has created. It's a guidance document. It's very long. It's almost 60 pages. You don't need to read the whole thing, but maybe just up to page 24 where the appendices start would be a good idea to just hear how the district is defining RtI and their tiered prevention framework. And then there is a website I'd like you to check out. It's this beautiful website. called the New York State Response to Intervention. It's out of Buff State. I just love this website, and it's another really good source of resources for you. So if you're working with a second grader, you can click on second grade, and it will give you lesson plans and programs that might be appropriate. Not everything on this website is free, but if you see that it says sample lesson or activity, you can click on it, and often it will take you right to this great research-based resource for you. So this is a lesson for phonics and decoding, change one letter. So the student will use their knowledge of letter sound correspondence to write and change words. So if you're looking for lessons for your student, I encourage you to check out this website as another great resource. Third resource is this one, which is the RtI Action Network. So this is another website I want you to just click through. So first you're just going to explore, look around, see what you find. And then in your participation activity, I'm directing you all to the research part of this website. And I'd like you to each choose one of these articles to read from their research section. And then you're going to respond in a participation activity on this pinup canvas. So pinup is like Padlet, another free application. You'll just click the plus sign to add your own. And I just want a key quote from that RtI article that you read, and then make sure that you cite it, and you can use any of these fun ways to post that you'd like. Yes, I am going to delete that. So please post to that pinup, and then you've made it to the end of the module. You can take the quiz and the survey. Please send any questions that you have to me.